everyone. I have a video on 11.8 and it is back from the spring. So I'm going to show you a few more examples here in this video that will get you through the homework. But the one that I put on the test is similar to question one. However, I would strongly encourage you to learn all types unless this is your exit class. So that you have the math background you need to be successful in the next course, because max and min is something that comes up often in calculus. So I can't quite recall if I have mentioned this in a previous video. Oftentimes in an in-person situation, I do wait to show you the shortcut until we get to 11.8, so you just appreciate it so much more. But there is a shortcut to finding the vertex. And so instead of having to complete the square and do all of those steps like we have done in the past, the shortcut is this, that x equals negative b over 2a. And then you plug in the x to find the y values, or whatever the variables happen to be. So you plug in to find f of x. And so you no longer have to complete the square. It'll always give you the vertex every time. And I think you'll appreciate how quick and easy it is, especially when there's decimals, like in this first word problem. So, all right. So in this one, we're comparing pounds of milk per day for a calf that is X weeks old. So this P of X is the pounds of milk, okay? And X represents how old the calf is. So this is pounds of milk. And so when is the calf's milk consumption the greatest, and how much milk does it consume at this time? So this seems like kind of a crazy random sample problem. I got it right out of the book. And so we know that because it begins with a negative here, it opens down. So our vertex is a max value. And so if we can just find the coordinates of that vertex, that will tell us when it's the greatest and how much. So the when is the x and the how much is the p of x, or the y value. So all we need to do is use this shortcut. So this is our A, 1.3 is the B, and 6.2 is the C, and you can tell we don't even use C in the shortcut. So if you want to, you can rewrite that off to the side over here. Maybe some of you underline. I'm sure some of you don't do any of these things, and you just pull it out straight out of the equation. All right, so negative b. We're going to take that 1.3. If it starts off positive, we need to change the sign. If it starts off negative, we're still going to change the sign back to a positive. So our x is equal to minus 1.3 over 2 times negative 0.2. So our two negatives will drop out, and when I do this math, I get 3.25, and this represents weeks. So our calf is 3.25 weeks old. And then in order to find the number of pounds of milk that calf consumes, we're going to go ahead and go back up to this original formula and plug it in. So negative 0.2, and we're going to plug in 3.25 for x squared plus 1.3x plus, I think it's 6.2. Yep, I've got C right there, 6.2. I'm just going to type that right into my graphing calculator, and it's going to come out to be 24.0825. So depending on how we want to round this, it is about 24.1, or about 24 pounds of milk. So do you have to write this as a coordinate? No, you just need to know the weeks. You just need to answer the question and the pounds. Let's do it again to make sure you've got it. This is, again, the type that you need to really concentrate on. I put it on the test. I chose one of these for the final exam as well. And so this next one, it was a different company in the book. I just changed it to myself. Ha ha ha. All right, and so x equals negative b over 2a. This is the low value because this is a positive coefficient here. A is positive. So our parabola is going to open up. So we should expect that vertex to be a min. So it's going to be the lowest value. So I've got some solar company and we want to know the value of the share and when this happens and what was the lowest value. So A is 1, B is negative 6, and C is 13. So x equals, all right, so here's a perfect example. There's a negative here, there's a negative here. So if we do the opposite of the negative, it turns into a positive over 2 times A is 1. So x is 3. Now, let's read the sentence. X is the number of months after March of 2009. So we have April, May, and June. So this represents June of 2009. That is the practical answer, not just 3, but what month did this occur? It would have happened in June. But 3 is the number I'm going to plug in because that's what X is representing. So in order to find the value of that stock at its lowest point, I'm going to plug in 3. And I am going to get 9 minus 18 plus 13. So I am going to get $4, I believe. 9 minus 18 is negative 9 plus 13 is $4 per share. So that is how to do that. Okay, we've got 2 more types. This one tends to be the most difficult. And there are 2 different types within this kind of subset of looking at a rectangle. So in order to do these successfully, we need to do a little review of some geometry. The perimeter of a rectangle is 2. Remember, perimeter means the distance around the outside. So if we walk around the outside of this rectangle, we would have a W plus an L plus a W plus an L. So the formula here, 2W plus 2L is the perimeter, should make sense. And we also have to remember that area of a rectangle is length times width. All right, so a furniture builder is designing a rectangular end table with a perimeter of 128. What dimensions will yield the maximum area? Literally the only number we know is that the perimeter is 128. But that is enough. So we're going to start with our perimeter. We're going to plug in 128. And you get to choose one of these variables to solve for. All right, so solve for L, solve for W. It doesn't really matter in the end. For this particular example, I do notice that all these numbers are even. So it would be, you're going to get better numbers, smaller numbers, if you take a second and divide everybody by 2. So 64. Oh, gosh, that was a little bit larger eraser than I needed. So 64 equals L plus W. And then let's just solve for L. So take the W to the other side. I will write the negative W first, even though I don't usually write it like that, but I know what's coming next. And so that's my length. Over here, I'm going to take this area formula because what dimensions will yield the maximum area? So I'm going to write the area formula right here. And I'm going to plug this piece in for this L. So area equals negative W plus 64 times W. And watch what happens. So we're going to distribute this. The area equals negative W squared plus 64W. And all of a sudden I've got a quadratic. I've got a quadratic with a negative coefficient. So if you think about how that would be graphed, it would open down, which means the vertex would be here on top, which means that I would have a maximum W, and I am looking for the maximum area, so it all kind of interconnects. So now we're going to use that formula. The shortcut is W, because it's not X in this case, it's W, equals negative B over 2A. So the B is 64. I need to make it negative. So negative 64 over 2 times, getting ahead of myself, negative 1 is the A. Negative 64 over negative 2 is a positive 32. So the width would be 32. Oftentimes students really struggle with this particular problem, and part of that is that there's just so many formulas running around. But notice right here, you've got a perfect place right here above you to solve for L. Okay, L is equal to negative W plus 64. So let's take that 32 and plop it right in there. Negative 32 plus 64 is also 32. So the width would be 32, the length would be 32, which in actuality proves that it would be a square, not a rectangle. And if the question asked you for the area, then length times width is the area. 32 times 32 is 1024. So 1024, I don't even know if this is yards, meters, inches. Oh, it's a table. Inches squared. So 32 inches, 32 inches, and then 1024 inches squared. Okay, so let's take this idea and let's alter it just a little bit right here. So in example 4, a lifeguard has 100 meters of those things that float in the water, and he needs to make this rectangular swimming area. So I kind of pre-drew everything. And so the beach is here off to the left, but the water is on the right. So instead of having a 4-sided rectangle, he only needs to use, I just wanted to show you that this was the water. He only has to cordon off on 3 sides because the beach is going to work for that side right there. So in this case, there's a W and a W, but there's only one L because the other length is the beach. So in this particular case, the perimeter is L plus 2W. And so he has 100 meters of this. So I would probably solve for L, subtract that 2W to the other side. And so if you want to rewrite it this way, L equals negative 2W plus 100. Then things don't look as backwards. And then over here, write the area formula down. Area is length times width. So let's plug that in. So these steps are exactly the same. Negative 2W plus 100 times W. So let's distribute that W. So negative 2W squared plus 100W. And now once we have it in a quadratic form with an A and a B written in the right form of things, we can go ahead and use that shortcut. So here's the A, here's the B. So again, in this case, it's not an X, it's a W equals negative B over 2A. So negative 100 over 2 times negative 2 turns out to be 25. And I believe this is in meters. Yep. Okay, so once I figure out what the W is, that's why I went and circled this length so it would stand out for you right here. This is where I would plug in for the W. And so the length is equal to negative 2 times 25 plus 100. So negative 2 times 25 is negative 50 plus 100. The length would be 50 meters. So the width is 25, the length is 50. So the area being the length times the width. Not every question asks what the actual area would be. It just asks for the dimensions, but just humor me here, because if this did ask and it was this specific problem, just go back and multiply these two things. So 1,250 meters squared. All right. We've got one more. If you've got this shortcut thing down, I think you're going to find that it's really super straightforward. What two numbers add to 26 and yield the maximum product? So we don't know what the numbers are. So when in doubt, let's just use x plus y. They add to 26. And the product means to multiply them. So hopefully you see the similarities right away between the area question and this, because we're just going to choose to solve for one of these variables. So x equals negative y plus 26. And so I would circle that because you know it's going to come up again. So let's come right over here and let's plug that in for x. So negative y plus 26 times y. Let's multiply that through. So negative y squared plus 26y. And now we're ready to go to the shortcut. X equals negative b over 2a. So negative 26 over 2 times negative 1 will give us a positive 13. And so 13 can be what I plug in. Oh, I put x and it should be y. I was getting myself a little confused there. Forgive me. It turns out both of them are the same, but we're solving here in terms of y, and I'm so used to writing that shortcut. The variable here is y, so y is 13. And you can see immediately above me, I've got x equals negative y plus 26. So if I plug in that 13, but I've got a negative right there, so make sure you change the sign. X will also turn out to be 13, because again, the square is the maximum area, so the same number is going to yield the maximum product. And if it asked you for what that product would be, it would be 13 times 13, or 169. There we go. Wrote that a little backwards there. All right, so that should be a little bit more comprehensive for 11.8. And so this should get you through all of your homework. And when you get done with this lesson, you should be pretty much done with the whole class. So if you've made it this far, congratulations, and I hope everyone is doing well. Thanks. Bye-bye.